Scott, civil rights activist whose involvement in the federal voting rights case exposed Sister Rowland to many years of death threats, cross burnings, and other random acts of terror when she was a child. She recorded their story in her first book, Witness to the Truth, published by the University of South Carolina Press. Her second book is Raceology 101, Fundamentals for Understanding and Change, which won first place in the 2018 National Federation of Press Women's Nonfiction Competition. Her commentaries on race have been published in the Post and Courier, and she is a contributor to Howard University's African American National Biography. Sister Cleo is heavily involved in local race work. She has served the Royal Church family as Assistant Sunday School Superintendent, Youth Church Director, and Executive Director of Royal's nonprofit, the Royal Foundation. She's a retiree of Santee Cooper, where she was in risk management. Sister Rowland is a summa cum laude graduate of Grambling State University. She is married to Frank Rowland and has two sons, Marlon and Devin Brown, and a daughter-in-law, Delisa Brown. She resides in Goose Creek. Most importantly, she is a servant of God with a big heart of love and concern for God's people. Join me in welcoming Sister Rowland. Also, we have the opportunity to welcome tonight Chandra Young Scott Esquire. Chandra is a native of North Charleston, South Carolina. She received a bachelor's from the Bachelor's of Arts from the University of South Carolina, Columbia, with a major in political science and a minor in Spanish. Chandra Young Scott attended John Marshall Law School in Atlanta and worked as the supervising attorney with South Carolina Legal Services in the Migrant Farmer Division. Mrs. Scott is currently working as the Director of Voter Protection with the South Carolina Democratic Party, where she is the lead attorney in the fight to protect voters' rights in South Carolina. Mrs. Scott is also CEO of SYS Consulting Group, LLC, which specializes in civil rights and advocacy, legal compliance assistance for nonprofit organizations, political and social event coordination and planning, and public speaking. Please join me in welcoming both of our wonderful speakers, and we will start off with Mrs. Scott Brown.
Well, good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining us today on voting during a pandemic. And what I suggest is that if you get a piece of paper and a pen so that you can take notes on like the website names, and also maybe you can just use your phone and take a picture of the various slides, like when I provide information on your contacts and your addresses for all your different sites where you go to vote. So welcome today. So what we have coming up on June the 9th is a primary election day. And the difference between a primary and a general election is that's the time when you select who will represent your party on the ballot in the fall. So when you go in to vote at this next time, I'm having a problem. Okay, now it's moving forward. You will be voting in June on who will represent your party for these offices. You have your congressional seats, that's the U.S. Senate and House of Representatives, your state House and Senate, the coroner, county council, sheriff, and if you vote in the Republican primary, you'll have a ballot initiative in Berkeley County. Now, in South Carolina, you get to pick which party's primary you want to vote in. They don't restrict you, you get to pick. So when you go in, you will go in and you will tell them, do you want to vote in the Republican or the Democratic primary? Now, just so you understand, if a person is running for an office and there is no other people of that party running for that office, you won't see their name on the ballot in June. So let me give you an example. Like Jamie Harrison is the Democrat who is running for the seat currently held by Lindsey Graham. if you vote in the Republican primary, there will be 4 people listed as running for that Senate seat. But if you vote in the Democratic primary, you won't see any names because there are no other Democrats running against him. So that's the way it works for the primaries. All right, so why is this election so important? Why are these seats so important? Well, I picked 5 reasons why I think it's so important, but there are many other reasons. But one of the really big reasons is what I call voting wrongs. And so sometime a few years ago, the Voting Rights Act was gutted. And after that time, that meant that people could make changes to the voting rules without it having to be pre-cleared for whether it was discriminatory. So once that was thrown out, ever since then, they have been making lots of rules and regulations that impact people of color and their right to vote. So the people that we vote on for the State House are the people who get to change laws that impact us in terms of our voting. Then the voting rights, the only people that can fix what was gutted in the Voting Rights Act are people in Congress. So both of those groups will be elected in the fall using people that we select in the June primaries. And of course, the census is coming up. The census is going on now. And for some reason, people in South Carolina are not completing those censuses. But what happens is whoever is elected this time, they're the ones who get to draw up the new districts. The new districts are based on the new populations that come in the census. So they can either draw the lines in a way that is beneficial, or they can draw the lines where people of color can have basically no impact. So it's really, really, really important who is put in order at the time of the census. Then we also have the pandemic, and whenever there are limited resources, that is the time when you want to make sure that people are in office that represent you. Last but not least, we have the judges. Judges are systematically being moved into federal positions that have a proven record of being on the wrong side of issues that impact people of color. So who is in office, who's in Congress, who gets to vote on these recommendations, that's really, really critical. So what should you do to prepare? Before every election day, I would suggest that you check to make sure that you're a valid voter. Because right now they are purging people from the voter registration rolls all over the United States, or in the South Carolina, they just invalidate you. If you haven't voted in a certain number of elections, you can be invalidated, things like that. So first check to see if you are still a valid voter, make sure that your information is correct, and get your sample ballot. You need to get it so that you can research the people that are running for office. So all of those things you can get in one place, and that's at scvotes.org. And so when you enter that website on your cell phone or on your laptop, you will get a screen that looks like this that says My Votes, this blue screen, My Votes, My SC Votes. And then you will select Check My Voter Registration. It will take you to a screen that looks like this. You will enter your information. You will hit the Submit button at the bottom. And then it will take you to a screen that looks like this. This screen will tell you all your information, what district you're in, where you vote. And that's really important that you keep check on this precinct location, precinct address, because a lot of polling places are being changed because of the pandemic. So you'll want to go to this page and verify your voting location before you go to vote, if you plan to vote in person. At the very bottom of the screen, you see View Your Sample Ballot. That's where you can print out your ballot. Okay, now in this election, first thing you should decide is whether you want to vote absentee. And what's different about this election is because they recently, the legislature recently made a change on who could vote absentee. Because of COVID-19, anyone can vote absentee in this election and any related runoffs. And you can vote absentee by going up to the office in person, or you can vote absentee by mail. So if you want to vote by mail, you have to request an absentee ballot. And the way you do that is, number one, you have to complete an absentee ballot application. And you can get your application one of two ways. The best way and the fastest way is if you have a printer, you can complete your application online. And the way that you do that, you go to SC Votes, the same place, scvotes.org, but you select Get My Absentee Application. And then it will take you to an absentee page. And under the By Mail section, you will find the link to download your application, which you can complete. Or if you don't have a printer or a friend with a printer, you can call on the phone. You can call your voter registration office by phone. You can send them an email to request your application. So I'd suggest probably the fastest phone or email. All right, so you can request this ballot application for yourself or someone in your immediate family, or for another voter only if you are that voter's authorized representative. And that is a person who's working on behalf or requesting on behalf of somebody disabled or ill. Now, so you completed your application online, typed in the information they required and printed it out, or you've requested one over the phone or through email. They've sent you your application form, you filled it out. You need to make sure you sign that application and you return it to your county voter registration office as soon as possible. Now, they have no later than 5 p.m. the Friday before the election. I would not run that risk. I would try to get it in just as quickly as possible. Like after today, just go online and request it now, because you have to think of the process. You're applying to get a ballot. So you gotta send it to them, then they've got to get you a ballot, send it back to your house, then you've got to fill it out, then you've got to send it back to them. So time is of essence. You can return your application by mail, email, fax, or personal delivery. Now, I just want to note one important thing about that application. They are going to ask you the reason why you are voting absentee. And this time only so far, you can put in reason 18, which is state of emergency. Now, there are other reasons more than I have on this list that you can pick from that's there all the time. But for this election, you can do reason 18, state of emergency. Now, you've sent in your request for a ballot. They've sent you your ballot back. Make sure that you follow all the ballot instructions. That's how they say to fold it, which envelope to put it in, what all the signatures and the places where it asks for a signature, that it's dated, that it's witnessed. And I know it's a pandemic and you may live alone, but you got to find somebody to witness this. There's a lawsuit about this right now, but it hasn't been settled yet. So you got to get it witnessed and make sure your witness include their complete address. sign completed and completed ballot and return it by mail, or you can drop it off at your county office in person. Now, if you can't take it and you want somebody else to take it, there is an authorization to return the absentee ballot form that comes with your ballot. You'd have to fill that out and the person who's taking it up to the office. So you make sure you do not put that inside your ballot envelope because that is sealed. That authorization has to stay outside so that that other person can take your ballot in. And always remember that candidates and paid campaign workers cannot return your absentee ballot unless they're an immediate family member. And all of these ballots have to be received by 7 p.m. on election day. So if you get your ballot late and you're not sure whether the mail will get your ballot there by Tuesday at 7 by Tuesday, then you need to try to take it yourself or get it sent by somebody using that form. And then, of course, step 4, check the status of your ballot after sending. It's on the same website, SC Votes, and it's the check my absentee ballot button. Okay, maybe you waited too late and you just want to go ahead and do your absentee ballot in person. You can go into the county office, make sure you have your photo ID. You can do this up to 5 p.m. on the day before the election. Remember, they are practicing social distancing, so they may not allow a lot of people in the office at one time. And the county offices are open also on the Saturday before election from 9 to 1 and closed on the 25th of Memorial Day. You can take your cameras out now. You can take a picture of this slide or get it later, but this tells you the offices that are open. Note that Dorchester County is opening 2 other offices starting on June the 1st. Some other satellite offices might open in other counties, but I didn't see any at this time. Okay, so you want to be brave and go in person and vote. We got something for you too. Be prepared for social distancing. They're going to have 6 feet spacing marked on the floor. So you need to be prepared. The lines may be longer. They may be outside. You need to be prepared for whatever might be because of them having to space everyone out. They were supposed to have the check-in stations and the voting equipment spaced 6 feet apart. They're supposed to provide masks and gloves. They are asking you to wear masks and gloves. You're to bring your own pen for the sign-in, and they are working to get more workers that day to sanitize regularly throughout the day and enforce safety rules. They were supposed to have disinfectant supplies on hand, and they're supposed to provide cotton swabs for those touch screens so you don't have to touch them. But if you have on your gloves, that's not a problem. Other things to consider, have your photo ID. Remember that we have new voting machines since last year, so if you don't know how to use those, I have a video on my Facebook page. You need to, when it prints out your paper ballot, you actually get a printed ballot. Make sure you check and that the names on the paper printed out is exactly the same as what you picked when you tapped on the electronic screen. And you need to make sure that that paper copy is scanned in because your vote is not counted when the paper copy comes out. It is only when your paper copy is scanned in that your vote is counted. They are currently looking for more poll workers because many of the workers were seniors and are refusing to work, and they are actually paying extra money this time for people who are willing to work that one day. And don't forget to check your voting location, make sure it hasn't changed because some have. And then we're asking everybody to work to address voting issues before the fall. And we have another speaker that's coming on in just a little bit. who's going to talk about election protection. So we want everybody to be on board to assist the organizations that are working to provide election protection. Some known polling location changes. If you usually vote in Northbridge, Baptist, the Palms, Grace, on the Ashley or Seacoast Church in Mount Pleasant, those locations are definitely changed. There may be other changes, but those are definitely changed at this time. Here is your contact information. You can take a picture of this screen. This shows you who you can, where you email or where you call. And then last but not least, this is your contact information for your presenters. We might put that back on at the end. So if you want to call us and you have additional questions, that will be available for those calls. So right now I am going to turn it over to Attorney Scott, who will talk to us to share great information about voter protection.
Thank you so much, Miss Cleo, and it's so nice and wonderful to be here. Thank you guys so much for having me. I do appreciate the opportunity to come on and speak about voting rights here at your Wellness Wednesday. Again, my name is Chandra Scott, and I work primarily with voter protection. I work really closely with Fair Fight. Fair Fight is an organization that was founded by Stacey Abrams in Atlanta, and that was as a result of what she went through when she was running for governor, and she felt like there was a lot of voter suppression, a lot of voter intimidation, and so she created Fair Fight and is working with a lot of organizations throughout the country in order to make sure that voters' rights are protected for the general election, and then as well it will be for within the states as we do our primary elections and things of that nature. The majority of things that we are looking at, again, voter intimidation, voter suppression, anything, and I say those terms, and I know sometimes we start to think of like overt things that you could clearly identify, but also talking about things where you may not get all of the information or all of the information may not be disclosed to you, so therefore you're not able to make an informed decision on voting and what your rights are because you're not given all the information, and that information is being purposefully omitted. And so we want to make sure that we get all of that information out. Ms. Cleo did an excellent job of detailing everything that has to do with absentee. We are really, really pushing for everyone to vote absentee because we definitely do not want any of our voters to be in a position where they have to choose between their fundamental right to vote in a free and fair election and their health. And so we have been doing a lot of work with some attorneys out of DC in regards to pressuring our South Carolina legislature and our South Carolina courts into making that option for us. And so there are some attorneys out of DC. Perkins Coie is the name of the attorney. They have filed a lawsuit on behalf of the Democratic Committee as well as SCDP and two individually named plaintiffs in South Carolina that are voters to expand the absentee ballot exception. That case was heard last Tuesday morning, and then by Tuesday afternoon, that's when we got that wonderful piece of legislation that was passed that expanded absentee voting. So that was amazing. And then there's also a federal case that has been filed. There's 6 individually named plaintiffs all throughout the state that will have issues when it comes to this COVID-19. And in both cases, the push is to include the general election in November with this COVID-19 absentee ballot excuse, and also a further push to expand things to vote by mail so that there's no more excuse absentee by mail voting, and everyone will have the option to vote by mail going forward. So that is our goal. As Ms. Cleo stated, within those lawsuits, there are other ask of the court and of the legislature to do away with the witness requirement that is required on the absentee ballots because of COVID-19 and social distancing. We are waiting to hear back on that. We are also waiting to hear back as to whether we can ask the state to absorb the cost of postage that has to go into all of this mailing of the ballots. And so we've noticed that a lot of people, especially our communities of color, are not very trustworthy of the mail. And so we want to make sure that we try to eliminate any of that second guessing of that. And so we want to make sure or ask and request the state to pay for postage for when you have to send your absentee ballot application off. And once you get your ballot, sending your ballot back in. So we are waiting to hear on those things as well. The ACLU has also filed a lawsuit, and they have deemed voting, or their argument is that voting during COVID-19 is unconstitutional, as well as requiring someone to witness. So there are 3 different actions, 2 in federal, 1 in state, actually state Supreme Court, that are going on right now in order to expand voters' rights and expand vote by mail. So we are really, really excited about that. And it's so extremely important because even though we have this legislation expires on July the 1st, 2020. So we don't have it yet to where it's extended all the way to the general election. So if you qualify for absentee ballot under any other reason outside of COVID-19, I would encourage you to use that because there has been a lot of questions that we haven't had very clear guidance on in regards to when you use the COVID-19 excuse for the June primary. Usually when you get your absentee ballot application, you would get it for the June primary, and then you get one for any special election that's happening in your city or your county. So I live right now in Berkeley County in Hanahan, so we had a special election in Hanahan. So I received that ballot, and then I received the application for the general. So I received all 3 pretty much because I will be working as a voter protection. So I will be working. So under that, I received all 3. However, if you use COVID-19, that will work for the June 9th primary and for any runoff. But as of July 1st, it won't work unless we're in a state of emergency. So there's been some question as to if people request their absentee ballot and they get it for November and they put COVID-19, will that ballot be kicked out? So that's another area where voter protection unit will have to come into play because we definitely don't want a lot of ballots to be thrown out for not meeting the excuse. So just keep that in mind. While COVID-19, we did get the expansion, keep it in mind and think a little bit forward when it comes to the general election, because that COVID-19 excuse is not guaranteed for November as of yet. So very, very important to remember that. Also just wanted to speak also within the lawsuits when Ms. Cleo spoke about making sure that you have your absentee ballots in by 5 o'clock on the day before the election. There is a part in one of the cases where we are asking that it's a receipt date postmark. So as long as it's postmarked before the date of the election, we're arguing that the election commissions accept those ballots, even if they come in after the election. They're playing with how many days they are going to allow that to come in and accept it. So for right now, we have asked for 3 to 6 days. So as long as it's postmarked by the time of before the election, and everything goes through, they'll accept it 3 to 6 days. That's what's on the table as a proposal for now. So that's another thing that we're looking into, just to try to make this process easier and try to make sure that we capture as many votes as we possibly can. Wanted to speak a little bit towards the authorization forms that Ms. Cleo mentioned, where you can have someone turn your ballot in on your behalf. There are a lot of, I've been getting a lot of phone calls from different counties of people that are running in the primaries, where you cannot, as somebody that works for the campaign or as the candidate, go around and collect ballots. However, there have been some reports that there are candidates or campaigns that have certain individuals collecting ballots on their behalf. And so it'll be like a group, and they're going around collecting ballots, and they might say, especially to our older voters, that we can take this ballot in front of you, easy for you. Tell me who you want to vote for, that kind of, and it could be something where it's coercing. Tell people, we'll take this ballot in for you. And that is legal, as long as you sign that. If that person signs that authorization form and they give me authorization to bring that ballot in, that's fine. However, if I'm coming in and I'm working for candidate X, and I'm going around and I'm just collecting ballots for people, people trust me. I'm not doing anything wrong per se, but I'm collecting the ballots. And 9 times out of 10, they're like, tell me who to vote for. So you really want to be careful, making sure that if you have any older voters 65 and older, who may not be that savvy with the voting system, voting process, you just talk to them, let them know not to sign anything that they're not certain of, not to give that authorization away to anyone that they do not trust, and let anyone that's just coming by and just collecting ballots. Please be careful of that, because that is a way that we've seen in South Carolina where there's a way to circumvent the system and to get more votes in for a particular candidate than what's really true. So we want to make sure that we're watching that and calling to attention any of these things that are going on, and watching out for our elderly voters, as they are very they're more susceptible to be taken advantage of, especially during COVID-19. You might have someone coming to them saying, oh, you fall within the, group that's high risk, let me take your ballot in for you, that kind of thing. So definitely want to make sure that we are making sure that we are looking out for that. Also, if you do request an absentee ballot and you go to the polls on the day of, you will not be able to vote in your precinct. You will have to take that absentee ballot to the County Board of Election, and you can turn it in there and vote there. And that is because they're trying to prevent people from voting more than one time. So just to make sure, like Ms. Cleo said, you might have requested it and you didn't have time to mail it back. But once you request it, you're going to have to take it back. You're going to have to either mail it back, or you're going to have to take it back so that you can make sure that your vote is counted. And also, I know for Berkeley County, just speaking on some office precautions that they've taken, they do have plexiglass up in front of the individuals that, when you come in and you show them your ID, they have the plexiglass up that separates them from you. I went and I had my own mask and my own gloves. I've heard of other County Board of Elections, they supply you with the mask when you come in, but that I didn't have that in Berkeley County, or they didn't offer it to me because I had one on. So they may have some. They did have the Q-tip in Berkeley County. They had, it is good to bring your own pens, but they did have pens that were already sanitized. And so you use the pen and then you drop it in a basket after you've used it, and they re-sanitize everything all over again. And everyone in there, the person that's there to help you at the polls, that the actual machine to show you kind of what to do, they have on a mask or a shield that is pretty much goes from their head down to their face. So they are completely covered. So they have gloves, everything. So no one touches you and you don't touch anyone. So that was really, really good experience. And when I went in person, we were in and out in 5 minutes. It did not take long at all. So it's not for the absentee when I went, I think it was last week on Monday. And then also, I know Ms. Cleo also mentioned precinct changes. Definitely want to pay attention to consolidation of precincts. This is something that's another indirect way of voter suppression. A lot of the precincts that have been consolidated that we've seen so far, even though the reason is COVID-19, I've seen that there are a lot of precincts that are closed in our rural communities and also our communities of color. So if that is an issue, or that's something that you come across and you feel that it is an issue, please definitely reach out to me for any kind of assistance with that. We do have a voter protection hotline that you can call, and this number is up and operational as of right now, and it's operational year round. And it definitely will be up and running on the day of the election, on the day of the primary and the general election. So if you're out and you're standing in line and you're 6 feet, social distancing, and you're noticing that, the line isn't moving or nothing has opened yet, or you're noticing just anything that's strange, definitely use this hotline. And our hotline number, I know we had a slide of it with it up, but I'll just say it real quick. Our hotline number is 1-855-785-0222. Again, that's 1-855 785-0222, and that is our Voter Protection Unit hotline number. You can call that number to ask any question. If you're seeing anything in your respective precincts or communities that you feel need to be addressed or need to be highlighted, you can call us there. We have different programs. We have volunteer programs, or we have people that can be poll watchers, people that can assist us with our hotline, and also people that can assist us with being community liaisons. Please feel free to call that number if you would like to be a part of that, or reach out to Ms. Shamika, and she can give you my contact information and get that information there. And I think with that, we can turn it over to questions. I think you're still on mute, Ms. Shamika.
Yeah, I am. Thank you, Chandra and Cleo. Chandra is Shakima, but it's okay. Thank you. It happens all the time. It's okay.
I'm sorry.
But I definitely appreciate both of you taking the initiative to share this knowledge. So as we stated before, if there are any questions at this time, that you could go ahead and enter those questions in the Q&A session. While you guys are doing that, I do want to make you aware that at the end, do not just immediately log off. There will be a prompt for you to complete a survey. It is so vital for you to help us do the surveys, to help us, one, bring relevant and valuable information, and also help us for accountability reasons for us to attract, in conjunction with the foundation, the number of people we are serving. So we ask that you help us in that regard to just stay online. As soon as the meeting ends, the survey will pop up, and if you can go ahead and complete that for you. While we're waiting on questions, we actually have someone. This question says, when I go online, can I also get one for me or my husband with the same computer and email address? And this is in regard when they're talking about the absentee ballot.
Okay.
Cleo or Chandra, could either of you?
Yes, you can request one for yourself and for someone in your immediate family.
And I know I requested one. I don't recall them asking for an email address. You actually printed it on screen.
Yeah, because you're putting in, information about yourself, about the person.
Right.
And I think doesn't it even ask for like the last 4 digits of social security?
What it asks for the same information when you validate your voter information, your date of birth, that information. Yeah. But there was no request for email address. You just actually print it on screen, so you should be able to. Okay.
Yeah, and when you print them off, remember you have to have access to a printer, and also you have to have access to download the Adobe Reader. Otherwise, you won't be able to print off the application. So I think inputting the last 4 of the social, you should be fine using the same computer, using the same email address, as long as you have that last 4 and you're entering all that information and can print it off.
So Ms. Cleo is actually going to take us, if you want to focus on the screen, she's going to actually take us to the screen. While she's doing that, Chandra, really quickly, another question says, can you witness your spouse's application?
Yeah, I believe you can witness your spouse's application. I haven't read anywhere where it says you can.
Yeah, I read that you could witness your spouse's, and the person doesn't have to be kin to you. They don't even have to be a registered voter. They're just vouching for you are you, that they actually know that you are you. And that's the witness, the purpose of the witness.
Okay, awesome.
And that's another reason why we need any kind of volunteers, because we definitely want to make sure that we have people in those rooms whenever they're opening those and going through those absentee applications, because they can throw them out. They can have any reason to throw them out. It wasn't signed correctly, like Ms. Cleo said, to make sure you're signing in all the correct places. It wasn't witnessed properly. So we want to make sure that we have people in the room that can, you know, contest, you know, whether or not these are valid instead of throwing them out.
Thank you. We have another question that came in. It says, Cleo mentioned that on the ballot, four Republicans will be on the Republican side. If a Democrat is voting for the senator, if the Democrat is voting for Senator Graham's replacement, where will his name be?
Oh, so this is a primary election. So you're just voting for who is representing your party. And so in the fall, that single candidate will be on the ballot. So during the election in November, you will see whoever won out of the four on the Republican side, one person will be on the ballot for the Republican side, and one person will be on the side for the Democrat. So you don't have to, if only one Democrat is running for an office, you don't have to do anything in June for that particular office. I hope I'm making sense.
Can I make a little clarity to that point as well,
Okay.
especially for those that are requesting absentee ballots, because I just did this yesterday. When you go to request your ballot, you have to indicate if you're voting in the Republican or the Democratic primary. If you choose the Democratic primary, there will not be an option when you receive the ballot to vote for a Democratic candidate for that particular seat, because they don't have an opponent. So I think that is important to understand, because I know some people get confused when they don't see the candidate they're expecting to be able to vote for not appear on the ballot. The only way you will see choices, like she indicated, is if you choose to vote in the Republican primary.
But all of the seats in your area that have multiple people running for that office will appear on your ballot, depending on whatever party you pick. Every seat that has multiple people within your party running for that office will appear on your ballot. Then all the voters will pick one person to represent their party for that office. Basically, if I say I want to run for office and nobody runs against me on the Democratic or the Republican side, depending on whatever I'm running, then I just automatically get to represent the party.
Right, and I will not be on the primary ballot. I think that's yeah, because I know I've people get upset because they think that they didn't get an opportunity to vote, but they already won because no one.
Well, they didn't already win. They won
the right to represent that party. That's important to clarify. They won the right to represent that party.
Okay, all right.
Any other questions? These are really, really good questions. Chandra, I have a question for you in regard to, I do understand that you have the voter protection hotline. After election day, if you still feel or you didn't get an opportunity to vote, what would be my next step? If I felt like my vote was suppressed and I didn't get resolution on the hotline, what would be my next step?
Well, from the hotline, basically we have attorneys working throughout the state, including myself on that day. And so when people call in on the hotline on the day of election, or any day really, but on the day of election, we have a statewide system where your issue is put in with all of your contact information and everything that happened. And it will get assigned to an attorney, and that attorney will be in contact with you as we work to resolve the case and as we work to resolve the issue. And our goal is to resolve the issue on that day, but there were some issues that we had to kind of go back and address and look at that happened on the presidential primary back in February. We had some different things going on there, but once you call, you're in the system and you will be contacted. Your case will be, I assign the cases to different attorneys, and that attorney will be reaching out. And then from there, given the situation, is kind of how we'll decide whether or not we need to take legal action. Is it just me making a phone call to whatever county board of elections to see what's going on? So we will take steps from there to escalate the issue and make sure that's resolved.
Okay, and just one final question, because I want to make sure people are clear on the opportunity. Are there fees for these services?
For voter protection?
Yes.
No.
Good.
So when you call, our number is free, our services are free. We're going to assist and help in any way that we can to provide any clarity and definitely protect voters' rights. So there are no fees associated with any of the work that we're doing for voter protection.
Awesome. So
I have a question. My question is, when do they expect to have these lawsuits resolved or heard? And I'm talking specifically about the one relating to witnesses and the one relating to whether we will get any relief in November.
That's a great question, and there's never an answer to when a judge is going to hear a case or when we're going to get on the docket.
It
But our
doesn't have a
goal
date?
is no date.
Okay.
We file the cases in the hopes that it will give the courts enough time to cure the issue, so solve the problem prior to the election, so June 9th. So as of right now, technically the issue is cured because they've expanded the absentee ballot voting. However, they still have time in regards to dealing with November. So we have had hearings just on preliminary injunction, so just like for parts of the case instead of the lawsuit in its entirety. And so we had the preliminary injunction in the federal court case on Friday that dealt specifically with the witness requirement and the postage receipt requirement. So those two. So hopefully sometime here this week, we will hear something because they need to make some kind of decision so we know how to move forward for June 9th. So just for June 9th, we're hoping to hear something from both cases on just the preliminary injunction parts for June 9th for this week here so that we can start getting the word out and implementing. But for November, that's going to probably be a longer fight, and I can definitely keep people updated and posted in regards to kind of how things unfold.
We still have time, so if there are any additional questions, we have an opportunity to go ahead and get those in. This has been definitely great information. Everyone who knows me knows I'm a huge advocate of voter rights and voter protection. And I think now more than ever, it's so critical that we stay, we talk about it from the church perspective. We talked about being fully armored. I think this is definitely a time in a season that we need to be armored with information and with rights, and understanding what our tools are. Nairobi, we do have someone who's raising their hand. If you can recognize them, they will be brought on the screen and they can verbally ask their question. I don't have access to make them a panelist to ask their question. That's what you will have to do.
Sorry, I had to step out. What was that you wanted me to do?
There, Ms. Leach has a question. If you want to, you can bring her on screen so you can unmute her so that she can verbally ask her question.
Okay, that's been done.
I think she's still muted. Okay, Ms. Leach, your microphone is activated if you wanted to ask your question.
Yes, the only thing I wanted to ask for, some of those numbers that Cleo gave it kind of flashed through a little fast. And I need like some of the, well, especially for Charleston County, the voter registration.
Oh, the contact numbers.
Yes.
You want me to, let's see, share that screen again?
Yes, please.
Before we go, okay, let me go up one. Wait a minute. Okay. Why is it not going up to the screen before?
Now your screen is shown.
Screen sharing has stopped.
Okay.
Okay, let me try it again.
Okay, and while she's doing that, I'm gonna go ahead and pose the two, well, she got it up. I recognize the questions in the chat feature, and I will ask those questions when she gets it up.
Okay, so can you see it now?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why I was suggesting, maybe people, if you have your camera, you could just take a picture, or so that
And
you can.
we can also, if you can provide screenshots, get some of these, or get the numbers out. If you because if you registered, we have your email, and we can get that out via email. Okay. Couple more questions. The witness, does it have to be notarized?
No.
No.
No, the witness does not have to be notarized. And it says, can one household mail all ballots together in one envelope, or is it one ballot per envelope? That's a great question.
That's a definite no. That's it is very, very specific directions. You fold it this way, you sign it this way, you put it in this envelope, then you put this envelope in that envelope, and then you sign that. It's very, very specific. So when you get your ballot in the mail and it has this list of instructions, go through them line by line and follow them line by line, because we know that nowadays people are looking for all sorts of reasons to invalidate a vote. So that's why I said be very, very careful that you follow it line by line. So no, each ballot has to be sealed in its own envelope and witnessed and signed, and all that has to be done individually.
Ms. Cleo, this question is directed towards you. Will you provide info on who is running by county for primary office on your Facebook page?
That's why I told everybody to get your sample, how to get your sample ballot, because who's running is different for every county. And yes, there was a time when Cleo Brown Rowland actually investigated every single candidate and actually put a bio, the good, the bad, and the ugly for every candidate. And so few people appreciated my days and days of work that I stopped doing it. So
you had us spoiled, I will admit. So I just want to throw out another resource in addition to what Ms. Cleo has thrown out, southcarolinavote.org, to see who's on the ballot. I also like ballotpedia.org. They actually have clickable links that you can go out and do your research on each individual candidate as well.
And also, I'll put it on my Facebook, the link, League of Women Voters, they usually send out questionnaires to candidates. And so you can read where they stand on different positions on their page. You have to put in, where you live, and then they'll give you bios on everybody who turned in something. And then the Democratic Party has all of their candidates. They have bios on everyone. That link is also on my Facebook page. The Republican Party does not have a similar page because I looked and I was gonna put that link on my page too, but it wasn't anything there. So those are some resources plus what Shakima said.
And I think that's a valid the point to bring out. Definitely do your research. And each candidate has contact information. They have information about what their issues are. Make them earn your vote. It's time out for them to just come around when it's time for election. Make sure they know who you are, especially on the representative level. They're like your first line of defense. My representatives know me very well. And so make sure I truly believe the squeaky wheel gets the oil, and politicians work for people who hired them. So we have two.
Can I correct that?
Yeah.
They don't work for people who hire them. They work for people who make noise.
And that's
all
how
of us
you
voted.
Yeah,
but if you don't ever make a request of them, then they don't work for you.
Yeah, that's true. Like I said, the squeaky wheel definitely gets the oil. Well, we are slightly over, but I think we're right on time. We've answered every question that came through. However, this is such an important topic. If there was something that you just jump up in the middle of the night and it hits you and you wish that you had asked it, make sure that you reach out and reply to the emails that are sent to you on the registration. We will get that question answered for you because we want you to show up for elections, but we also want you to be educated voters. And so that was the purpose of this evening. Just a little segue into what will happen at our next session, which is next Wednesday, the same time, 6:30, May 27th. We are going to continue our pandemic series. In this series, we will have legal Representative Marvin Pendarvis will be speaking to us about our housing rights during the pandemic. And Ms. Cleo, I apologize, I can't remember the other attorney from Legal Services